Okay, hello, and we are live at the Next 36 2018 application webinar. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Today is meant to be an info session and just a bit of a conversation with some of our newest graduates of the Next 36 cohort, and hopefully a great chance for you to learn a bit more about the program, the application process, and what the experience is like to go through one of Canada's top programs for young entrepreneurs. So my name is Ainsleigh Burelle. I'm the Marketing Associate at Next Canada, and I've been with the organization for just about 3 years now. So I've had the chance to kind of see the evolution of the organization and the programs that we've kind of added over that time. And so I'm happy to be here today with some of our newest alumni and get you some more details on what to expect when you apply this year. We are streaming live today from Resolve Collaboration Studios in downtown Toronto, so thanks to their team for hosting and streaming today's webinar. Just a couple housekeeping items before we start. Obviously, this is being streamed live, and it's also being recorded for you to watch later. During the hour, we'll be taking questions that you can tweet to us on our @Next36 handle using the hashtag N36apply, and we're happy to take your questions in real time during the webinar today. You can also, if you are registered and watching the webinar right now, ask questions through the live chat feature, and hopefully we'll be able to take and answer some of your questions. If you have not heard about the Next 36 program before, this is one of the first times you're hearing about the program. It is the first program launched by Next Canada, which is a national nonprofit organization founded in 2010 with the goal to really create and inspire Canadian prosperity through high-impact entrepreneurship. And so Next 36 was the first program we founded with the goal of selecting a small number of really high potential Canadian entrepreneurs and providing them with the resources that they need to be successful. And so I guess right now we are hosting this webinar. We've just launched applications for our 2018 cohort. So you can go to our website and apply now, or maybe after the webinar when you have a bit more detail on how to really strengthen your application. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our three panelists for the day. I guess we can start with Kyle.
Hey there, I'm Kyle. I'm the founder of a company called Propel, and pass it along.
All right. Hi, I'm Ingrid. I'm the founder of Lytebulb, and I'll pass it to Jazzy.
Hi there, my name is Jasdeep, and I'm the founder of a company called Pierre.ai, and I guess we'll pass it back to Ainsleigh.
Cool. Do you guys want to talk a bit about maybe the schools and the programs that you come from?
Sure, I'll start.
Sure.
So I did my undergraduate at the University of Toronto in molecular genetics and neuroscience. Right now I'm doing my master's of science in biochemistry, so I'm working away at that.
Cool. And then I went to UBC and studied integrated engineering, so that's multidisciplinary. I actually have a background in mechanical and electrical design. So then to switch to something like entrepreneurship is kind of a pretty big change, but yeah.
Thank you, Kyle. I did my degree at the University of Calgary, and I did natural science, so it's pretty multidisciplinary as well. I did chemistry and energy science within that, and I also did a minor in business.
Amazing. And Jazzy, if you want to hold on to the mic, maybe you guys want to tell us a bit more about your venture and what is the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, of course. So Pierre.ai is a personalized product recommendation engine for small to medium-sized e-commerce companies. So think of what Amazon does on its websites, its email campaigns, its social media. All the products that you see are on there are personalized towards whoever is looking at it. Smaller companies don't have the ability to build out this sort of data science stack to be able to analyze all their data in over previous user interactions to be able to place those products within their website, social media, and email as well. So we built a little sort of plugin which the companies can integrate throughout their Shopify, WooCommerce, and Magento stores so that the products that are most likely to be purchased by whoever is whoever their customers are will be dynamically injected into whichever medium they're looking through. And the main problem here is that it generates more lifetime value per customer for the shop owners as well, and it makes a personalized experience for the customers who are looking at the products.
Cool.
Okay. So at Lytebulb, we're making biosensors to be able to detect the level of health of your cardiovascular and cardiac system. Basically, the way that it works is that we select 3 biomarkers in your saliva that we measure. One tells you how healthy your heart is, one tells you how unhealthy your heart is, and the other one tells you information about your blood. The purpose of that is you can take that information as a doctor. You can see if the treatment that you're giving to your patient is working or if there's something that you can do better. Alternatively, for patients, they can take it at home, they can take actions at home, and they can tell which actions are more impactful than others. That way, when you go into your doctor's office, you have a smarter conversation with them, you can make better decisions in the clinic and at home and take better care of your health.
And Propel is an online marketplace for private swim lessons. And we basically take hotel pools, condo pools, backyard pools, and then open them up so that instructors can use them to teach private swim lessons. So we're collectively creating basically the first personal swim instruction industry, akin to something like the personal training industry.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. And so you are all kind of have been through the undergraduate process, but I should mention who kind of the Next 36 program focuses on in terms of who's eligible for the program and who are we delivering this program for. So we focus on undergrad students, recent grads, as well as graduate level students who are under 30, who are really excited about the potential of taking their existing venture and building it out to a global scale or starting something brand new. And so that's essentially who we're focusing here. So if you guys want to talk a bit about how you initially found out about the program, like what was your first touch point with the program? What made you want to apply?
Okay,
Maybe we start with
I
Kyle.
can go first.
Sure.
Yeah, I came through a referral, which we tend to find some of the best candidates through that method. So Andrea Palmer, who was in last year's cohort with Awake Labs, I've been kind of like keeping an eye on her trajectory throughout my university years, and she's just been an amazing academic and entrepreneur. And so she was the one who approached me at some point and just said, I see that you have a similar trajectory. You should really consider applying. It's a really special program. And so that was how I got into it.
Awesome.
All right. For me, it was more related to the accelerator H2I on campus at University of Toronto. So that's the Health Innovation Hub. They send out the emails every month with updates on stuff that's happening around campus, how to get more involved in entrepreneurship. One of those emails was Next 36. Specifically, the mentor that I work with in that accelerator told me about the program. He thinks that would be a really good fit, so I looked more into it. I found out more about it, and then I applied. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I found out about a little bit differently. I think I was a little bit more proactive, so I just was Googling different things and looking for different things to get into, and Next 36 came up, and I just read more into it. Then I talked to some people. I reached out to them through Facebook who had done the program before, and it seemed like a good fit, so I just kept investing more and more into it.
Awesome. Cool. And so I guess when we're talking about things that maybe attracted you guys into the program to initially apply for it. The main things that the Next 36 program applies, for anyone who may not be familiar, is once the entrepreneurs come into the program, we provide them with mentorship, seed capital, and we also run a pretty intense and rigorous founder development program that happens in the second phase of the program. So I guess I can walk through a little bit of the timeline, starting from now when applications are live, right up until selection weekend and the culmination of the program, which just happened 2 days ago at Venture Day. So today we have applications that we've launched for 2018. Those are on our website. And the application is a 2-step process. The first part is just a series of written questions that will ask you things like, what is the most entrepreneurial thing that you've ever done? And the second phase of the application is a video interview process that we facilitate using Cure Talent, which is actually an alumni venture of the Next 36. And so maybe in a bit we can talk about kind of what your application process was like and any advice you might have for people watching on how to strengthen theirs. So applications this year will be due on October 17th. So that gives you a good chunk of time to kind of think about how to position yours. Between now and then, we will be on a national campus tour. We will be visiting campus locations all across Canada, from BC to hopefully Halifax. and everywhere in between. And so there will be a listing at the end of this hour with dates that we've already confirmed, and we are kind of in the process of confirming more of those dates. So we will be visiting with students, different startup hubs, and hopefully connecting with entrepreneurial hopefuls for the program between now and the end of October. Once you've submitted your application, we go through a selection process where we have members of the network kind of look through the applications, and we will invite 72 finalists to join us in Toronto for our national selection weekend, which will happen this year, December 1st to 3rd. In downtown Toronto. So no matter where you're from in Canada, we will fly you in for that weekend. And that weekend is almost meant to be a mini kind of experience of what the whole Next 36 program is like. So you'll go through a series of pretty rigorous back-to-back interviews with some of our mentors and advisors and experienced business leaders who support the program. You'll get a chance to connect with fellow finalists, maybe meet your new co-founder if you are coming in without an idea. And then you'll also get a chance to attend workshops and keynotes and hear from a bunch of other experienced business leaders who are affiliated with the program. So it's really meant to be kind of a microcosm of what the next 8 months are like. During that weekend, we actually select the 36 who will officially take part in the program, or the lead founders as we call them. And then they have the opportunity to pair up with other finalists they've met on that weekend, or as well bring in external co-founders from their hometown or home community that they may have already been working with. So the way that we've kind of shifted the program is to allow founders who get in to be a little bit more flexible in terms of forming their own teams. So if you're actually applying, although it is an individual application and all entrepreneurs are accepted sort of based on their individual merits, if you do have an existing venture, you are definitely able to apply to the program. As long as you are at the stage where you are pre sort of private investment or pre other outside investment capital, you can definitely come into the program and bring your, there are kind of ways to rope in your other co-founders, which I think Kyle's a good example of someone who did that, so we can go into that a bit later. So following selection weekend, for anyone who may not already have an existing venture or existing co-founding team, they have roughly 6 weeks to nail down their other co-founders that they'll be working with, as well as their idea, at which point we will pair them up with a mentor whose experience and sort of domain expertise matches up with the problem that they are looking to tackle. January to the end of April, beginning of May is the first phase of the program, where everything happens remotely and is almost a part-time commitment. So after selection weekend, you can fly back to BC or to Calgary and participate in the program from there. And there are a series of different online programming and sort of you are still working towards meeting different milestones in your company, but you can participate from wherever you are in the country. Come May, we invite all of the entrepreneurs to join us in Toronto, where they actually move into residence together, and that's when the summer phase of the, we call it the Entrepreneurship Institute, begins. So that is the really intense part of the program where we run our founder development classes, we run additional workshops, and we also have many more in-person opportunities to pitch your venture and pitch for some of the funding that we deploy. This all leads to Venture Day, which, like I mentioned, happened 2 days ago at the Mars Discovery District in Toronto, and that is the final opportunity for entrepreneurs to pitch their idea to a room of about 300 different business leaders and kind of end the program on a high note. And you guys can talk a bit about kind of your goals and your plans post-program as well. So that's kind of a rough timeline of the program. And I would also like to highlight that I know you guys mentioned the programs that you come from, but we are totally open in terms of school and program that you're applying from. So we say that we are program agnostic or school agnostic. We have representation from the sciences, from some business and some engineering, but we also do have plenty of art students and architecture students and people with sort of deep domain expertise that are applying into the program as well. So from here, Maybe we can start with Jazzy since you have the mic, but could you tell us a bit about coming off of kind of selection weekend and take us through the process that you went through to find your co-founding team?
Yeah, of course. So selection weekend was obviously very intense. Like Ainsleigh mentioned, there was a series of rigorous interviews, but I think they also did a really good job of allowing you to meet a lot of other people out of the 72 so that you could sort of get a chance to establish a relationship with some people, find out their backgrounds, and then get a chance to hang out with them for a little bit in between all the rigor of the interviews and the whole process and everything. So from the selection weekend is actually where I met Josh, one of my co-founders who has a marketing background, and my other co-founder, Eric, the technical piece to our whole experience. He actually was back from Calgary, so they both came in through the second intake process. Once I got in, I was able to refer them, and then that's kind of how I found them.
Okay. Selection weekend for me was very interesting. It was very fast-paced, and you got to meet a lot of people, which is very cool. I found my co-founder. My co-founder is a friend of mine from way back when, from first year undergrad, from math class. So I didn't find him through the selection weekend process. But yeah, so I've known him for a very long time. I realized that I wanted to do something that was healthcare related, but also more biology focused because that's what I know how to do. And I needed somebody to help me build something like that, but that was also capable to build a biosensor solution and all the chemistry components that come into it. So I asked around for anybody during selection weekend if they knew how to do that. And there were one or two people that said yes, but they weren't exactly comfortable. As my friend who I'm co-founding with, that's what he's doing his PhD in. So that's why I decided to go with him. But from selection weekend, of the people that I've spoken to, I think I've reached out to basically everybody for some sort of help at one point within the program, or if I needed business help or even developing the biosensor itself and whatnot. So it was definitely helpful in terms of that.
Great. And then I'm an example of one of the founders, or one of the people in the program who came with my own venture, and I already had a team put together. And so my experience with National Selection Weekend, everyone was like, "Hey, great, you're going to this thing. We hope you get in, and then once you're in, we hope you can pull us in as well." And going through the experience of National Selection Weekend, going through the interviews, that's only really part of it. The other big thing that I got out of it was we have a lot of keynote speakers who are really just super, super inspirational, one of which is Tony Lacavera. Gave a super inspiring talk about, how we need more Canadian disruption of the status quo and, creating big, high-impact ventures. And that just set the tone for me to, once I was accepted, I went back to my team and I wrote them a big long email saying, hey, this is like what we thought was a relatively, interesting opportunity. This is a massive opportunity. This is something that is going to forever change the trajectory of the company that we're running. And so, that proved to be amazing in that, one of my co-founders, because we were in early business, he couldn't quit his job right away. As soon as I got into Next, it was very apparent that he needed to quit. And he went full circle. So my co-founder, Sean, came into the program on the second intake, like not gotten in and feeling maybe a little defeated about not getting on the first intake. And by the end of the program, he won one of the top prizes, which was the statue prize.
You did.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Cool. And so I guess maybe that's a good segue into just talk about the types of people that we're looking for this program. So, and probably it was something that drew you all in, or something in that description kind of you identified with. Ultimately, the Next 36 is for people who are excited about building sort of globally relevant businesses. And so that doesn't always mean a technical business, though most of you do have a technical aspect in your company. We have plenty of other companies. One example that often comes to mind is Paul Shinoda with Hexa Foods, or Wilder and Harrier, which is a cricket flour based dog treat. And so they are still focused on having global impact and through sustainable protein and sort of scaling to this global level, but they're definitely not a technology company. So you don't have to want to build a technology company. It just happens that often those are some if you have a tech element, it's usually lends itself to scalability, but that's not a prerequisite by any means. We're looking for people who can demonstrate that they have some sort of entrepreneurial track record. And so maybe after this we can go a bit into sort of what your individual application processes were like and what you chose to highlight or not highlight on your application. And so an entrepreneurial track record doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have founded a startup in the past. It could mean that you have started a club on your campus, or that you've held a co-op or internship at another startup and you've been entrepreneurial there. So we're looking for people who can kind of demonstrate that they have that sort of track record. Just to collect different data points, we will look at things like GPA. It is a fairly intensive program. I think you can probably all speak to the intensity of the founder development curriculum and the classes. And so the GPA is one thing that we look at, although every year it is sort of becoming less and less of a defining factor. So we realize that, just because you have a 4.0 might not mean that you are super entrepreneurial, but that you also don't need a 4.0 to be someone that can start a really successful company. So Kyle, maybe you want to talk a bit about what your process was like going through the application process, going through the Kira video.
Sure. So after I had been referred by Andrea Palmer, I went to the campus-wide tour. I got to meet John. It was a really great experience. And so I highly suggest to go and get that information. You're going to get a lot of information from this, but being able to actually meet people who are working for the organization, ask pointed questions, that's where I kind of took the first deep dive. And then, filling out the online application. Actually, I myself am like a little bit older and didn't quite meet like the age requirements. And so I had a great exchange with you where you were kind of saying, a real entrepreneur won't let things like that stop them, at least from applying. And that set the tone for me to realize that this is the type of organization that isn't gonna hold you to like very steadfast rules or anything like that. So I whipped together my application. I tried to send along as many like supplementary materials as I could. So I have like a portfolio of I used to work on a student design team, and then obviously running my own company throughout university, and then the Kira talent videos. They're basically a series of questions. You're going to have 30 seconds to answer the question, and you're not going to know the question ahead of time necessarily. So you really have to think on your feet. It's just generally good practice for interviews. And it's actually a really useful platform, so I can see how you guys are able to get quite a bit from that. I'll pass it off to you.
All right. So for me, it was a little bit different. I participated in the startup sprint weekend that you guys host every year. So the way that works is every year there's a hackathon where you put together a company, and then there's a prize at the end, which is a spot for a national selection weekend. That doesn't mean that you don't have to fill out the application. You still do. That's still being used when you're selecting the next 36 people of the cohort. So the way that I got into my application was successful for the selection weekend was through the hackathon. But I did realize that because the actual application was going to be used, I had to make a strong application as well as the Kira interview. The way that I did that is I didn't have too much entrepreneurial experience in terms of building a startup before this. I had co-founded a research journal at the University of Toronto, an undergrad research journal for molecular genetics. So that was my shining example of something that I've built that was nice to present. The other one is, even though I graduated from life sciences, I took a capstone course of biomedical engineering at the end of my degree. So for the selection, for the startup sprint, we needed an idea to work on. So I said, hey, I worked on this. It has potential. I know it's a problem that needs to be fixed, but I've never really addressed it as a business. So came together with some people that I met there, and then we put that project together, and then it won. And then for the Kira interviews, it was actually kind of funny. So for my last question, my computer shut down. So I emailed, and it was not a good time. But I emailed what my response would have been, and they still consider it. So even if something goes wrong, don't freak out like I did. But just if something happens, I'm sure there's a way to fix it later. But I also think that kind of showed that I took the initiative. I wasn't oh my God, it doesn't matter if my application goes in well or not because I had a spot selected from the beginning. I think they like to see that you move forward and you try to pursue the opportunities that you get, even though sometimes not everything goes right.
I think I followed somewhat more Kyle's approach. I spent a lot of time learning the background and learning what the program was about before applying. So I found out about myself. I didn't really know anyone in the program, so I think I reached out to almost every alumni I could find on Facebook in the last 2 years. I was able to get on calls with a lot of them, which was amazing. They spent quite a bit of time. They didn't have to by any means. So they kind of framed how important it was as a founder development program, and I was really into that. So then I spent quite a bit of time revising my application and fixing it. And in terms of highlighting different things from my application, I think the main approach was during university, I started a club, first of all. It was to engage the community of Calgary in special needs classrooms, so to get volunteers into special needs classrooms. And then also we would host an annual fashion show in which kids with disabilities could participate as models and raise money for charities, which was an empowering experience. And then that sort of gave me the confidence to start a venture after that for students, and I highlighted that as well. And I think those two were really the things that demonstrated that I had sort of an entrepreneurial experience without having too much background in it, but still being able to kind of pull through it and get some things done.
Awesome, thanks guys. We have a question that came in. Someone's wondering that if they're not a programmer or coder and they don't have a technical background, are they at a disadvantage? I would say definitely not. Like I mentioned earlier, we are open to people from all backgrounds, which can include technical and non-technical backgrounds. And then you do have the opportunity, because the application is an individual one and you are admitted into the program kind of based on your own individual merits, whatever that may be. Like we just heard 3 really great and diverse examples of that. You are able to come into the program and then perhaps pair up with other co-founders who may have more of a deep technical expertise if you're hoping to build a venture that has some sort of software or tech element. So that's definitely not a disadvantage. Definitely would still encourage people without a tech background or just from maybe a background that doesn't seem as obviously entrepreneurial to still definitely apply for that. Great. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on sort of the trajectory that you're on, kind of, so where were you coming into the program? What were the major changes that you experienced during the program, and how has that changed kind of the trajectory that you may have been on when you applied almost a year ago?
Yeah, of course, it seems so long ago, actually. I think one of the things the program does a really good job of is introducing you to a lot of really, really high impact people. For example, Paul Demery came into class, David Ossip, all the classes are taught by Riza Sachu, Tony Lacavera we met, just some people who have had the ability to have a massive impact in terms of the Canadian economy, create a lot of jobs for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, when they tell you about their beginnings, you can really relate to them and understand that they're just regular people just like you. So it gives you that sort of confidence and the ability to understand that, okay, I can do this. If other people can do this who were just like me in a position when they were in their 20s and things like that, it's just a really empowering feeling, and it sort of sets you on a higher bar and gives you higher expectations for yourself as you're going forward.
So before going into this program, it was very like hit and miss for me. I had to make a lot of mistakes and learn sort of what was going to work, what wasn't going to work. I feel like through this program, what I've learned the most is how to be a successful entrepreneur without going through the experience of being through one. So it kind of like kickstarts you into making better decisions, knowing how to use your resources and how to allocate things most efficiently. So that basically, for example, in Dr. Catalini's class, we learned about experimentation and how with what you have, how can you make the most high impact experiments to get as much data as you need with the least amount of cost. So I thought that was really interesting. That's what I liked the most.
So in terms of my personal trajectory, my last internship was at Tesla, and like for a lot of engineers, that's the like working at Apple or Tesla or Google. You feel like you've just got it made. You can just go back there, and as much as I totally enjoyed it, and I would love to go back. I had a great idea. It was starting to get traction, and I really felt like I needed support to run with it. If I didn't do it, 5 or 10 years down the line, someone else is going to, and I'll just be kicking myself that I never took a chance on myself. So coming into this program and then being surrounded by resources and people who have, amazing academic track records or entrepreneurial records who then turn around and just point at you and tell you that they believe in you was just incredible. And so now on the other side of the program, I'm surrounded by, an alumni network of 400 people who are all big, amazing thinkers. And this is a thing that, that they push very strongly, that this is something we need in Canada and we don't have. And that was apparent to me because, again, I worked at Tesla when I was down there. After work, we'd go hang out and you'd meet kids from Google and Apple, and they just had these crazy moonshot ideas, and these discussions are happening all the time. And I didn't get a lot of that, maybe in my academic career here, but now I'm surrounded by people with amazing ideas and the willingness and the skills to make those moonshots come true. So on a completely different path because of this program.
Amazing. We have a question coming in from Jerry Yao, so thanks, Jerry. How did you guys find the balance between working on your venture while you were in school, balancing your time between participating in the Next 36 program and sort of pushing those milestones on your venture while also being in school?
Not sure. So if the question is about being in school while you're in Next 36, or is it about... Because we weren't really in school, right? Because this is a pretty intensive program. So usually, that's why it takes place over the summer. I guess the first 4 months.
The first 4 months.
So I had already graduated, but I do know people who have done the program, and the first 4 months can be difficult because they're still in school. But it's at a distance. You're reading some case studies, and you're just learning to make time. Yeah, and then it's nice that if you dedicate the summer to the program, you move here, you move into this amazing house with 36 other people. And when I say house, I mean big grad house. It's like a dormitory, but that it's putting all of that talent into this pressure cooker, and then you're getting a lot more out of the program. But for the period beforehand, it isn't super intense. Yeah, there's definitely an assignment maybe once a week, something like that. I don't know if you guys want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I can add on to that. So, sorry. I had also graduated, but my co-founder Josh was still in school, so he had a good experience with that. Although the programming may not be too intense, just going to school while working on the venture, while trying to figure things out, coming into the summer, and simultaneously doing the programming, it does get to be a little bit intense doing all of that. But the view was always, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and if it's something that you really want to do, you can learn to manage your time pretty effectively. It's not the most impossible thing in the world. I think they say that it should be between 20 and 25 hours a week that the program estimates that you should be spending. It might be more or less in individual cases. I think in Josh's, it was somewhere along those lines, and he was able to effectively manage it while going through school.
If I could add one more thing to that, actually.
What?
Because I was running my venture while I was in school, I was making tons of mistakes that I wouldn't have been making. Like that first 4 months of the program, you're doing a lot of product market fit, market research, things that are really required to make your business, accelerate the pace it should be. So I wish I had the opportunity to be doing this while I was in school, instead of just, doing everything myself and learning the lessons the hard way.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Okay, so moving on, you guys talked a little bit about exposure to some of the faculty in the program. And I should mention that that's something that we're pretty proud of. So Ajay Agrawal, who is one of the initial co-founders of the Next 36, when we were called the Next 36, has really put a lot of effort and energy into curating a really special curriculum focused entirely on founder development and applicable business skills, I guess you could say, that are things you're learning during the program that you can apply directly to your startup while you're working on it in the program. And so Ajay's managed to pull together a pretty impressive list of world-class faculty who will come in during the summer program and basically deliver these classes to the entrepreneurs in the program. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that program and sort of how that was able to augment your experience and contribute to the things that you were trying to test and iterate on day to day. Sometimes when we go out and talk about the program and we mention that there are classes that you have to come in and sit on during the summer, it doesn't seem like the most entrepreneurial focused thing. And so a bit about debunking kind of why we do deliver those classes and the value that it does offer would be a good thing. So I would, if you guys want to touch on who your number one top favorite faculty member was, and no repeats. So and just talk a bit about kind of who they are, what their background is in, and what was like the biggest takeaway you had from their class.
Okay, yeah. So just before I jump into the specific one, I just have to say it again because I've been through a number of accelerators where they have local experts that hold office hours. They seem like you have an expert in finance or whatever. The experts that Ajay Agrawal brings into this program, when you say world class, they are an order of magnitude higher in terms of they're the leading experts in their field. They're flying in from MIT to spend 2 hours with us on a Tuesday. That level of dedication and expertise is just unparalleled. So for that, they're all amazing. My personal favorite would probably be Professor Nanda, and he taught us basically everything you need to know about doing the deals with VCs. So, reading term sheets and actually going through the nitty-gritty line by line. And these are things would otherwise be a course at Harvard that would take an entire semester. We were learning in the span of 2 days. And we're spending about half of that time actually learning, and then he'll take the remainder of the time and ask you to bring specific examples with your company, and so you can directly apply it. Yeah.
For me, I don't actually have a specific favorite professor. I thought they were all super amazing. For me, what it was more about was understanding sort of what the most that I'm trying to get out of the class and how can I combine that knowledge into sort of a big project in my head so I can become a better entrepreneur in the future. So for example, if you look at Reza's class, you learn how to make decisions, how to act on your feet and know what you're doing. From Ajay's class, you learn a bunch of skills, how to make your business more valuable. For example, network effects and the Innovator's Dilemma, Nanda, we learned about VC deals and so on. Catalina, we learned about technology and what are new technologies and how to take advantage of those to add into your business. So I think for me, it was figuring out sort of what can I use the most and then putting all of that together into one. So.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. All of the professors that were brought in were orders of magnitude greater than anyone I've ever met before. They were all pretty much the smartest person in the room at any given time whenever you meet them. It's hard to pick a favorite one just because they're all so amazing, but they all teach you valuable lessons that are useful in the short term and both in the long term as well. For example, we learned how to communicate with data, how to test hypothesis accurately, how to negotiate term sheets once you get to deals and such things like that, and even things to do with international trade, which would be more important in the long term as your company develops and things like that. I think the most impactful professor of all has to be Ajay, just because he is sort of the gatekeeper of all of this. Every single professor who is brought in respects him tremendously. Pretty much anyone you meet will respect him tremendously. He just has so much knowledge and insight. When he's giving you 20 minutes to talk about your business, he really thinks very, very in depth about every little thing he says, and it's spot on, and it's kind of it gives you a whole new perspective of what you're doing every time.
Awesome. And I know, just to pick up on the Nanda bit there, I know that Stephen Lake, who is the co-founder of Thalmic Labs and was one of the early participants in the Next 36, founded a venture as part of the program, which kind of failed, and post-program went to go found Thalmic Labs, which is based out of Kitchener-Waterloo, and they essentially have a piece of wearable technology that uses your muscle gestures to allow you to control technology around you. Just raised a really massive round of funding and have opened up a facility for manufacturing in Canada, which is pretty amazing. But one of the things that Stephen, when he talks about kind of the founder development in the program, is also the Nanda class, and how post-program, when they were going down to meet with top VCs in Silicon Valley, understanding things like how to read a term sheet and how to negotiate terms. VCs were coming to him saying, how do you know this stuff? And he kind of attributed that knowledge to what he learned in Nanda's class. So I'm glad to hear it's good for you guys as well. And so the founder, so that's kind of picking up on the founder development piece. Another kind of core tenet of the program is mentorship. So like I mentioned earlier, after selection weekend, once teams have focused in on their idea and the problem that they want to solve, we pair them up with a dedicated mentor who is kind of with them for the ride for the following 8 months, and usually has some sort of deep knowledge or expertise in and around the problem that team is trying to solve. And so that's another big piece of the program that we're really proud of in terms of having these top CEOs and serial entrepreneurs who are actually giving their time and energy into thinking about the businesses that the Next 36ers are working on. So I would love to again hear from you three on who was your mentor. Tell us a bit about what they've done to get to where they are today, and what was your relationship like? Like what did you learn from them?
Okay, I'll start since I have the microphone.
Sure.
So my mentor was Cindy Fagan. She's the COO of SAP Canada. She talked about her previous entrepreneurial experience and also how she helps run SAP here. So she talked about, for example, KidScoop and the process of starting that up and how to find customers, how to put the company together, how to have a revenue model, but also running large-scale corporations as well, like how that, contrasting how those two organizations worked. My relationship with her was, she was, I don't want to say like the personal Jay Agarwal of our team, but she was very good at like finding exactly what we need to do and like boiling down like the decisions that we have to make and saying like, look, like you're spinning around in circles, maybe you should consider this or that. And then when we're like taking a step back, we're always like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why didn't we think of that to begin with? So that's sort of like the experience that I was talking about earlier of how to become a successful entrepreneur without going through the experience. Not so much, it's more of avoiding making those mistakes and understanding how to do it right the first time around. So that's what I learned most from her.
My mentor was Craig Campbell. He's the founder of Resilience Capital. He had a little bit of a different story than most people. He had to drop out of high school when he was 17 due to some unforeseen circumstances, and he started working in the security industry, and eventually he was able to learn all the ins and outs of the industry. He moved into security sales, and he realized that there was an opportunity to provide some value in a different way. So he started a company, he built it up. I think he had one of the largest security companies in Canada at that point. And then a few years ago, he sold that, and now he's been involved in investing in different businesses in the security industry ever since. It was just amazing how much time he was willing to dedicate to us. He was flying in and out all the time, but he would say he would book a meeting with us for 1 hour, and it would end up being 2.5 hours somehow. And we never heard him saying he had to go. He was always in the room, fully dedicated to us, giving us the time and the support that we needed, and he really got us to think through the problems that we were facing. We had a lot of existential crises when we weren't really sure about what we were doing and the problems that we were trying to solve, and he kind of like really brought some calmness to the team, and he got us to refocus into looking for a real life problem which we could solve for a real customer, I think was the biggest value.
Yeah, so our mentor was Randy Frisch from Uberflip. So he had a lot of expertise on the marketing side because Uberflip is one of the bigger leaders in kind of content creation at the moment. But what we really got from him was just super invaluable insight. When we would be going in one direction, sending him weekly updates, and he's reading those, and then he would just ask the simple questions that you just smack yourself in the face, and you're like, how did we not see this? This is like so obvious. We should be taking care of these little things. So from the outset, that was really good for us. And then, he was actually a very busy guy, and so we got a lot of phone calls in with him, and even just in those calls, he was able to give us a lot of insight. But then I'll say, on another side with mentors, we also have a pretty big list of advisors to the program, and so. For us, we're looking for pools in hospitality. We made a connection early on at one of the events with Michael McCarthy, who is a serial entrepreneur who has exited companies that are exactly in the hospitality space, and we just connected with him right away. And so these natural connections can also kind of occur in Next, and he's kind of an unofficial advisor, but we meet up with him all the time. He's given us great connections and great specific oversight and insight into the industry that we're looking into. So even if you don't get matched with maybe the mentor who's like specific to your industry, there's this amazing network of advisors that can become mentors. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm glad you touched on the advisory resources. So another, as part of the program, entrepreneurs do have access to this kind of additional pool of advisors, mentors from other teams perhaps, or people that you'll kind of collide with at Next events. But advisors are there to kind of jump in when you need them, that will kind of answer your call whenever you're having a problem, from anything related to things like user experience and design to mergers and acquisitions, positioning, branding, sales, ops. We try and cover as much as we can, so that's also a big resource for you guys when you're in the program. So we have another question coming in about what it is like to live with the other Next 36ers kind of during the program. Is there an air of competition there? Is it, camaraderie, competition? What is that kind of like over the summer?
I'll take that. It's funny, like now that we're just out of the program, we've been reflecting a lot. And when we first came in, there was a bit of like, for whatever reason, this air of competition, but it was just such a waste of our time. We should not have ever engaged with that at all, because most of us are not even in the same industries, so we're not actually direct business competitors. And if everyone in the cohort was doing amazing things and actually showing amazing traction, I have no doubt that they would be able to either raise from Next or raise from elsewhere, and have people push behind you to meet those goals. So early on there was a little bit of like, we were checking out the other companies, like where do we sit in relation to them? It's not something that you should engage with at all, right? Because now I think we're all like in love with each other, and we're all sad that we're leaving the house, and But if you guys want to add anything to that,
So for me, it was a little bit different. I didn't live in grad house. I had already had a lease before that and a bunch of furniture, and I had to return back to it. So I figured it'd be more of a hassle. In retrospect, I do regret it. I do recommend living with everybody else. I think you get to know everybody a lot better. You make deeper connections, but there's still opportunities to get to know everybody. But like, I do regret the chance of not having lived there, and having whenever I had a question at 2 a.m. I had to call somebody as opposed to walk over to the room. Although I'd probably be annoying both ways, but still, I do recommend living in a house though.
I completely agree with Kyle. It's been super sad the last few days having to say goodbye to everyone, so that's definitely upsetting. But it's what you make of it, I think. Some people choose to, so in the graduate house, you have different suites with a different number of rooms. You can live with your roommates, you don't have to, or you can live with the people you're working on the venture with, but you don't have to. So I chose to live with the people that I'm working on my venture with, and in between ourselves, it was complete camaraderie. We got along. We didn't really have any issues. We didn't have any issues with anyone else either. I think there may be a slight aura of competition to kind of start off with, but I think people feed off of that, and it ends up pushing one another rather than sort of being a negative thing. It's not really competitive. It's more just people are there to support you, so you can always turn to someone else. And even if you are in sort of related industries, that is definitely, I think, more beneficial because people have insights directly towards you as well.
Awesome. What is there any advice that you guys would give to people who are either thinking about starting a company or also consequently thinking about applying into the program?
For applying into the program, I think it's really important to know what the program is about. It's a founder development program. That's the centerpiece. It's something that will hopefully set you on a trajectory for the next number of years of your career, of your life, to be able to do amazing things within the global economy, the Canadian economy. So that's definitely something that I'll add to that. For starting a company, I think the most important thing is to find a real life problem which people are actually suffering with, which there are customers for. The program talks a lot about that, and then nailing down a hypothesis on why you think your solution would be accurate and actually being able to verify that and validate that.
So for applying into the program, I'd say my number one piece of advice is make sure that you want to do it, you're ready to do it. It's a lot of work, and you have to be able to adjust your time schedule. You have to work until like 4 a.m. sometimes, wake up at like 4 a.m. sometimes. So there's that. In terms of starting a company, I do want to echo the having a problem that there is a need out there that needs to be fixed, and that people are willing to pay for. From what I've learned in the program that I didn't realize before is the team is very, very important. There's two things that you're basically selling to an investor: what the idea is and why you're the team to do it. Before coming into the program, I realized that I had to have an idea that I had to sell and have a business plan and revenue model. I knew the team was important, but I didn't realize the extent of the importance of that. So I think only halfway through the program, I began to add more value to that. So I brought up more of our accomplishments and more of sort of like why why we're ready to do this, both in terms of our background in academia and also the business skills that we're getting through the program. So that's really important.
So to that question, I would say if you're interested in starting a business, just start it. Start it right now. Like whip out a memo pad and start writing your thoughts down. If you're not writing down your thoughts, it's never going to move forward. That's what I did. I was like a lifeguard, and I was just had a lot of time on my hands. Started writing it out. I saw lineups of people lining up for swim lessons, couldn't get registered. Started writing it down. Took the next step, built a website before I had any pools, and then took a stack of emails from my website to a local pool owner who let me teach. And so starting it, that's great. But don't think that you need to start it to get into the program. The only reason it helps is they actually don't care in any way or shape about your. In fact, they'll on National Selection Week, they'll probably tell you it's a terrible idea. And I think they said that to almost everyone that they hated all of our ideas. But what it shows is grit, and it shows the mental capacity, the mental horsepower to be able to actually create something and then sell someone on the idea. And even if it doesn't work out, like we push hard on this lean culture, this lean startup culture of fail fast. So, if you in 2 days can figure out that the business is a bad idea, that's great. Then you're not holding on to like some hope, and you can just move on to the next. You can learn from the failure and just move forward. So, and then in terms of applying to the program, apply and as Reza would say, like swing the bat. Don't think you're going to just pump out your application in half an hour. I'd probably spend, a few days, like actually thinking about how can I put my best foot forward? How can I, send some kind of a portfolio or something like that that's really going to, demonstrate that I'm, better than everyone else, because you need to. There's thousands of people applying. Look at the eloquence of your words. I had my co-founders read over my applications, and I read theirs to make sure that it was well worded and would be received well by everyone.
Awesome. A question for Ingrid related to, I know you mentioned, we were talking earlier about having Cindy from SAP as a mentor and kind of the importance of having like strong female mentors. What would you say, or do you have any words for any females who might be thinking about applying and coming into this world of high impact entrepreneurship, which can be a very hot button topic in terms of being largely male dominated? And do you have any words for anyone who might be? Yeah.
So obviously just do it, like Nike says. When we were going through the selection weekend process, sorry, I accidentally, anyway, when we were going through the selection weekend process, I noticed that there was a pretty high female population of applicants. So that was pretty interesting, and I was talking to a bunch of them. What I thought was super awesome was how dedicated they were and how much they wanted to do it. You can see, like, it's not, I don't think there's not so much a problem with, like, oh, we should get more females because we're trying to be, like, politically correct. I think the thing is you need to get people who are trying really hard. They want to do this. They have dedication. They have the skills. Like, I mean, that's what it's really about. And when I talk to Cindy and getting to know her, you can see that. You can see that she's very driven. She knows exactly what she wants, and she goes to get it. Like, it's just what it is. For anybody, it's not so much just female entrepreneurs, but I'd say for anybody in general, just have the dedication and go for what you want, figure out what that is, and pursue it 100% of the time.
Amazing. Thank you. For Jerry, we have another question from Jerry Yao. How were the interviews at selection weekend, going through that whole kind of rapid fire interview process, because they are pretty quick kind of turnover. I think it's about 6 minutes per interview. So how do you make yourself kind of stand out within those 6 minutes, and then also kind of within the application process? Do you guys have any interesting stories or about how you did that?
So for me, what I realized was that I can only play to my strengths. So every time when I went to talk to somebody, I try to figure out sort of how I can stand out based on what my qualities are. I also was pretty relaxed, and I just try to be myself because I figured that if I'm not good enough, then I wouldn't make it. Luckily, I was. But like, for example, there was one interviewer that I had. I was walking on my way over to the chair, and I accidentally stepped wrong with my heel, and I nearly fell over, but I grabbed onto the chair, and it looked pretty embarrassing. So I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then he started laughing, and he said that the first time he had a big interview, he accidentally spilled coffee onto the interviewer he was getting interviewed by. So I was like, do you have a cup of coffee I can pour out? So it's just, playing, like, humor is one of my strengths, I think. So it's just playing what you can do well but also showcasing the experiences that you have and say why, if you're in the program, like why they should invest in you. For example, what I said, what I think stood out was, for me, when I do something, I pursue it full on. And it's not one of those things where I want to try something and I'll see how it goes. I give 100%, for example, entrepreneurship, right? I decided, after I did the capstone course of biomedical engineering, I realized it's something that I wanted to do, and I went into an accelerator, I went to the next 36, I pursued this 100%, right? So, yeah.
I think, again, the most important thing to know is the piece that this is a founder development program, and all the people who are interviewing you, they're screening for the high impact people who can become high impact people. And if you don't even know that, you don't really have a chance to frame your answers in the appropriate way to communicate your points. But also, aside from that, I think the major point is just not to hold back. This is not a time to be shy. It's kind of like you talk about yourself. This is your opportunity to talk about yourself. And outside of that, it is pretty stressful at the time. It's a lot of interviews in a short amount of time, but all the people who you're talking to have been through the situation. They've done multiple interviews before. They're not trying to stress you out, so they do a really good job of like trying to get you in the right mind state of being able to answer the questions.
Yeah, I mean, like in a typical job interview, you're gonna study all these things and try to be super duper prepared. But these interviews are so short; they're like 5 or 7 minutes long. I mean, the best thing you could do, I guess, is just understand who you're talking to, maybe a little bit about their background. Don't go into the super deep dive, so you're going to get nervous when you realize you're talking to, Janet, the founder of Kijiji, like, oh my God, or someone who has a net worth that's like, just like crazy. Like, don't, instead, think about, who you are and your vision. Because even 7 minutes, you don't have enough time to say, hey, I'm, this or that, or technical skilled or whatever. You just come in with a vision and you sell them on that. You talk to them like just anyone you would meet on the street. You'll do really well. And I had that experience, and you're going to have, 10 interviews in a very short period of time. If one of them either doesn't go well or you're not really sure how it went, like don't let it hold you down. Because I had a couple, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going well. And I just kept pushing on. I had a great interview with Kirk Simpson, founder of Wave, who was just like, I love your vision. I love you. You're great. And that was just like awesome. And then I took that with me, through the rest of the interviews. And as much as, most people are just, they just want to learn more about you. There are a few people in there who might apply a little pressure. In particular, Reza Sachu, he likes to put pressure because he feels like it's an important part of being an entrepreneur. And so learn to take criticism well, and know that you might try to rattle your cage just to see how you'll react. And so that's perfectly normal, and you just need to you gotta be cool.
Cool. Good to know. Good tips for everyone thinking about applying this year. One last question that's coming in from Loop MD over Twitter. Can you have another job when you apply for the next 36? I would say that we talked a little bit about kind of the first half of the program that runs from January to kind of May. And so for the first half of the program, it is okay to be in school or maybe have another commitment going on at the same time. And like we were saying, it's maybe about 20 to 25 hours per week. That will also depend on what stage you are at in terms of your venture development. So if you're coming in with, if you're someone who's coming in with a pre-existing venture, maybe there's less work needed up ahead versus someone who's starting a brand new venture with a brand new team. So again, it's about, I think, I would say at least it's about managing your time effectively to make sure that you can still participate in moving towards those next milestones. And then during the summer portion of the programming, so the May to mid-August, is definitely a full-time commitment. And so you need to be able to move to Toronto and be kind of all in, eat, sleeping, breathing your venture pretty much 24/7. So be prepared for that intensity. Is what I would say. So I think we have about 2 minutes left, and so I just wanted to take a moment to remind everyone that, again, applications are open for our 2018 cohort now. You can go to our website, nextcanada.com, and you can find the application there. On our website, you will also find a full listing of our national campus tour dates. So starting in September, we'll be visiting Montreal, Toronto, some other schools across southeastern Ontario. We'll be out on the West Coast as well. And so join us if you are in one of those towns or cities. We would love for you to come out and meet. You'll get the chance to meet maybe some of you guys, as well as other alumni. You'll get to meet some other staff members and just get a feel for whether this is the program for you. If there are any questions you might have about the application process, the program itself, or you might want to connect with some of our alumni, you can definitely email us if we didn't get to it during this hour, info@nextcanada.com. You can feel free as well to reach out to us on Twitter @next36, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So I think, does anyone else have any other last words for people thinking about applying?
Yeah, just like Jazzy said, if you have questions that you think we can answer, I would be happy to answer questions from anyone. You can find us on LinkedIn, and I think that really helped your application process, right? So, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, yeah, I was just agreeing. It definitely helped me. So, like the people who had helped me, I'm definitely up for helping anyone. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I don't have Instagram, unfortunately. So, I think we're also on the Next Canada website somewhere.
Yeah, so this year we're also doing something new where we have a grouping of Next official alumni ambassadors, and you'll be able to find them on our website as early as next week. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Other than that, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We hope to see your application to our 2018 cohort, and I think that's it from us. So thanks, everyone.